The wind howled like a chorus of the forgotten, a shrill whisper that clawed at the walls of the abandoned observatory on the outskirts of town. Thick clouds swallowed the moon, leaving only the occasional flicker of pale light to pierce the endless dark. Theo Fletcher tightened his coat around his body, his breath curling into the air in soft, ghostly wisps. He wasn't supposed to be here. The observatory had been condemned decades ago after the fire, an event that left behind more than just ashes. People whispered about strange sightings, voices that echoed in the wind, and shadows that moved when no one was watching. Theo was no stranger to stories, but he had never believed in ghosts. He was a man of logic, of science. That's what made him the perfect candidate to investigate the rumors. It had started as a simple curiosity, old reports of unexplained astronomical readings before the fire. Signals, they said, messages from something beyond. The truth, he hoped, was far less dramatic. Maybe miscalculation, maybe a malfunction, but deep down a part of him wanted there to be more. As he stepped inside, the air changed. It was subtle, an unnatural stillness that pressed against his chest. Dust hung in the air like suspended time, untouched by movement. The silence was complete. He moved cautiously, his flashlight beam cutting through the dark. The equipment, rusted and ruined, stood like tombstones of forgotten knowledge. He ran his fingers along the edge of an old console, the metal cold beneath his touch. A flicker of static crackled in the distance. He froze. A radio? That was impossible. The power had been cut off years ago. Theo followed the sound, heart pounding. The static grew louder, evolving into something more. A voice, distorted, layered, inhuman. "Do you see?" it whispered. Theo spun, but the room remained empty. His breath came faster now. He shook his head. He was imagining things. It was just interference, nothing more. Then the telescope moved. Slowly, deliberately, its rusted gears groaned as the massive structure shifted on its own. It pointed toward the sky, aligning with something unseen. Theo's hands trembled as he looked through the eyepiece, and then he saw it. A shape, impossibly vast, hanging in the void beyond the stars. It was not a planet, nor a ship, nor anything his mind could comprehend. It was watching Earth. A noise behind him. He turned sharply, but there was nothing. The observatory felt smaller now, the walls pressing in. His own reflection in the dusty window seemed wrong. The eyes staring back weren't entirely his. The voice returned, "They are coming." Theo staggered back. His mind screamed for logic, but logic had abandoned him. His flashlight flickered, the shadows in the room stretching unnaturally. The old radio hissed again, the same broken whisper. "You were not meant to see." The walls trembled, the air thickened, humming with an unseen force. The observatory was no longer just a place. It was something else, a threshold between worlds. The telescope, it had been a beacon not for Earth to look outward, but for something out there to look in. Theo turned to run. The exit was gone. The door he had walked through was no longer a door, just an expanse of blackness that pulsed like a living thing. A shape moved within it. And then he understood. The fire had not been an accident. The observatory had been burned to stop something, to hide what had been found. But he had undone it. The shadows surged forward. Theo screamed. Darkness swallowed him whole. And outside, in the depths of space, the watchers stirred. The signal had been received. Earth was just another target. The next morning, the observatory was empty again. No sign of Theo, no trace of his visit. Only the telescope remained, fixed on the void. The stars blinked, and, somewhere in the distance, something blinked back. Moral: some secrets are not meant to be uncovered, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed.